this video, I'll demonstrate how to label curves and arcs and the different labeling options for curves and arcs in Microsurvey CAD. So just like the lines, the curves and arc labels are also controlled by your labeling defaults. So if you go into your labeling defaults and under your curve labels, under here you can set your label settings. So you just hit cancel. And under our labels group, you'll find our label curve options here. So if I just click on here, we have a couple options that we are able to use. The most common is label on curve. So if I prompt that here, it gives us all of our different labeling options on the arc. So you have the option to label the delta, radius, arc length, chord bearing, and chord distance either on the inside or the outside of the arc. So you have the option to choose. You also have the option to pick what information you want shown. So if you just want your delta, radius, and your chord bearing shown on the inside of the arc, you can make the necessary changes. You also have the option to input radial bearings and lines. So I'm going to check that on. You also have the option to change your prefix labelings. So you could use a delta triangle for the prefix, or you can use D for the delta. And you also have the option to change any of the labeling prefixes here to match whatever you'd like to change them to. I'm just going to leave these as the defaults for now. I'm just going to hit OK. Next, it's going to ask the arc I want to annotate. I'm just going to select on this one here. And next, it's just going to prompt me for where I want the bearing label placed for my radial line here. So if I just click on that, next it'll display our arc information here, and you can actually manually edit the information here if you'd like. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see that after I hit OK, it labels the delta, the radius, and the chord bearing on the arc, which is what I specified, and it has drawn the radial bearing and the radial lines. And if you want to apply the same settings for a different arc, you can do so by just picking on the next arc, or you can hit escape to get out of the command. I'm just going to hit escape to get out of the command. Another way to label curves, you can do label off curve. So if you want to display all the information here, and as you can see, it's a little bit cluttered to be able to fit all of the labels. So it's nice to be able to use curve labeling options off the arc. And if I hit OK, and we can use the auto text insertion so that it just auto inputs the labels after the first label. So if I hit yes for this, and I'll just relabel this arc here. I'll just click on that, and next it prompts me where I want to place the radius label. So I'm just going to place it off to the side here, and it's going to ask for a text rotation. Just going to leave it at 90. And once I've done so, you can see that it automatically inserts all of the curve information labels here for you onto the side. If I go back into our curve labels, we have the manual label off curve. So here we have the option to manually input the information that we want to give. So if we hit OK, and I only want to manually label the delta and the radius, for example, and I'll use auto text insertion for this as well. And I want to label this curve here. And I'll label the text radius down below here, and I'll give it a rotation. Next, I have to manually input the radius. So the radius of this is 35. And you can see that once I have manually input and hit enter, it automatically inserts the label there. Next, it's asking for the delta angle, which was 30 degrees, 50 minutes, and 13 seconds. And I'll just hit escape to get out of the command. And that is how you label curves and the different curve labeling options in Microsurvey CAD. Thanks for taking interest in this video.